Hey everybody, Shaman Hawk here with my dearest friend Elisa from Healers of Earth. You guys know her from Instagram, Facebook, and today we're going to talk a little bit about dream interpretations. How
Yeah.
are you?
Hello, Hawk. Yeah, I am fine. I'm very glad to do this with you and happy that we can share this also on the YouTube channel so people can actually see us.
hmm So, do you have a dream you'd like to start off with?
Yeah, last week I was talking with a friend of mine, and we were talking a little bit about the general situation of how we feel, and she's also a very intuitive person, and she has also a lot of dreams. And we were saying that we feel as something is going to explode in society right now. Like we feel a lot of pressure that there are more and more people going to the streets and protesting against what is happening, against the lockdown. And yeah, so it was interesting this conversation. And then some days later, I had a dream. So that night, I slept very deeply, and yeah, I have here my journal for dreams, and uh, I dreamed that I was in a big city. So it was nighttime, and I was in a hotel. I left the hotel, and I didn't know how to come back. So I actually left the hotel already with a lot of uncertainty. So the uncertain feeling was in the dream all the time with me. Yeah, so I was walking in the city until I reached a bridge. So I was coming close to a bridge. There was a full moon, so you could see from the bridge the full moon and the river. And there are also very black clouds in the landscape, like around the full moon. There were a lot of people on the bridge, and the people were also taking pictures about the moon because yeah, it was very beautiful image. And at the end of the bridge there was a volcano. So yeah, this was not making sense like in real life because it was in a city, and the volcano was in eruption, so it was yeah like spreading some lava, but suddenly it spread like a lot. It erupted like very strongly, and then there was a lot of lava coming out. And well, then people were like screaming, having fear as well, and yeah, and we were like running around, and to escape from that. Uh, yeah, and then the dream changed to another dream. So this was the dream that I wanted to share, and yeah, I thought it was quite interesting with a lot of symbolism there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, starting off that you're in a city, you know, I mean that's a big thing of 21st century life. Most of the world's population lives in cities, and it's a congested, high energy place with a lot of consciousness. So it's kind of in that symbolism, it describes everyday life for most of the world's population. And then the bridge is crossing over onto something. The bridge makes an easy path for a way to go across a river, a ravine, a canyon, over other bridges, over other traffic. But usually it's a clear representation of transition uh, from one place to another over something else. It made the path easier. But then the volcano um, at the inside the city, that's a little odd. It doesn't really sit. Most people don't, put one in, build a city right around a volcano. They make one at the base of it. That's been normal for a long time. And the reason they do that is mainly for watershed, wind protection, and so on. But and they're normally very beautiful to look at when they're only having snow on them and they're not erupting. But
Yeah.
then we go back into the moon. The moon is, in many systems, is the goddess. It's the emotions. It always has an emotional, magical edge to it. And then we have it with the darker clouds, so adds that magical imagery you get from Hollywood. But then it erupts, and that's of course when people are fearing death and the chaos and doing crazy human things. But I see it all within representation of what's happening today. Is the people have been suppressed, they've been pushed down. They're not allowed to move around. Actually, there's nothing physically stopping them except for their allowing someone else to suppress them. They
Yeah.
elected these officials into power, and then they agreed to obey the power that they elected these people into. Well, we know that power can be corrupted. We know power can be misled. It can be bought and sold. But finally, it's when you start to match symbologies, the people and the volcano have something very much in common. Most things that have been under pressure for a long time, and the earth itself creates a lot of pressure. Political atmosphere, political decisions create pressure on the people, and finally things just erupt. And when things erupt and explode like that, there's no real direction in the force that comes out of what had been suppressed for so long. And that's what really makes the chaos. Some volcanic systems will have vents, and these, like in Iceland, for instance, there's always some kind of pressure being relieved through a vent or a fault line. But we had one in the 80s in Mount St. Helens. It just blew up, and
Mm.
it was a disaster in the United States in the northwest part.
Okay.
But then they go dormant again until the power builds up again. So I see this dream here as like you're witnessing um, what's happening in the earth today. And there also has been some high volcanic activity, and we're looking at Iceland's a great example of it. But I think what you're seeing is the the people have this opportunity to transition, but again, and that's also from energies coming up out of the earth, again representing by the volcano, where people can really transcend into a higher spiritual evolution in their humanity. At the same time, they're feeling that need to explode because usually, and at least in my lifetime, I've been watching anytime there was this possibility for humanity to really leap forward and grow and evolve, the governments create distractions and suppressions of the people mainly through fear. And they many times the fear oriented person, which is most of humanity, misses this opportunity. And this is what we're watching again today. So I think you got a real good update. You got your own news bulletin from the universal media. You know. So,
Yeah, yeah. So I thought, like as you said, so there are several things that are interesting there. So one is, as you said, the city, like highly populated place, uncertainty feeling on the streets, and this is something that we all are feeling, this uncertainty. So when I left the hotel, I didn't know if I will be able to come back because I forgot the address. I didn't know. I forgot the name of the hotel. So I was thinking like, am I be able to come back at some point, if I need to. So it was, yeah.
no, this is a really good point. And this is something that stops people a lot in their evolution. Is that kind of a question? Like when they feel themselves in their own evolution really starting to leave behind the life they knew, the people they
Yeah.
knew, the perceptions that they used to hold. And they know that it's a possibility they cannot go, well, it's a fear that they can't go back to that. when the truth is they just have to learn the skill of living in between these perceived realities. So yeah, that's a very important part of that dream I forgot to talk about.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Is I think when you start evolving in your spiritual truth, you see yourself different, you start perceiving reality in a different way. It's like in the movie The Matrix that once you see, yeah, it's scary and you have fear to see the truth of what is happening, but you cannot really go back to where you came from, where to the start again, so you have to be able to be okay with that, and choose move forward in that venture. So I choose let myself go in and get lost in the city and see what is coming next.
Yeah, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
And
this
here's
yeah.
another. I'm gonna turn this off. It's cool enough. Here's another phenomenon that I've watched throughout my shamanic career is uh, people will actually get mad that they can't unsee something that they thought they wanted to see. And when you take them into that reality where it kind of destroys their perceptions, of the world of metaphysics, when they get into the real stuff, when they get away from the new age, fairy tale, and they see really behind the scenes, they can often get mad that they made that jump. And it's your fault that you destroyed their. And it's like, I told you before we got here. This
Mm,
and people, and that's the problem too. A lot of the uh, new age imposters and new age gurus, they tell people these little stories they had were actually a big metaphysical or shift in consciousness when it actually was not. And then when they make an actual shift in consciousness, and then it's like, oh wow, okay, I really this time it was real, and this time I really escaped the
mm,
fantasy routine, and I don't like it, and I
yeah.
can't see it, and it's your fault. Like, sorry, not, but like, oh well.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to the dream, also the symbolism of the moon and the river, the water. So, yeah, as you said, it's very much connected, I think, to the feminine, to the goddess, to the emotions. So, I think for also what I talk with friends, our emotions are changing so much in this period that some days I'm feeling good, everything is going to be fine, I trust, and some other days I feel just hopeless again and desperate. So I think the emotions are like flowing so much and not getting stuck, but really changing a lot. And the river is like the current of water, it's always moving. So it was not a lake, for example, that will mean something more stuck, but it was a big river actually, in the middle of the city. And yeah, like with the moon, the goddess, the dark clouds there, I think maybe it's also can represent what is behind the scenes as well. Like if we can see
Well,
past that.
with that river, all right, let's say like in the Rhine where you live,
Mm, in
that river is
Düsseldorf.
always moving, all right, but in that, people just see the surface of it, and they see some disturbance above it, but they have to imagine what's happening underneath. And so, but there's things that are happening underneath. So let's say there's a flood 100 kilometers north, or 100,
Mm,
yeah, and underneath the surface are a lot of sunken trees and other debris that's coming through there. Well, the same thing happens in the flow of consciousness.
mm,
So, like that one thing that happened with the magnetic poles at 9/11 that Greg Braden talks about.
yeah.
So the people who are more in tune and in the shamanic journeys, in this tune with the shamanic flow, at these times become kind of like radio scanners. The radio scanner is scanning all the frequencies at once, and when it picks up activity, it just goes into that frequency. And so now, if there's a large wave of panic and hopelessness that starts to tip the scale, so meaning that let's go from 0 to 100, and now on a bright, sunny Saturday morning in your area at 10 o'clock in the morning, everybody's got this wonderful vibration, emotional signal or emotional frequency of like 65, 75. But then some event happens, 200 kilometers away, and people hear about it on the news. And now the other location and you in your area, it goes down to like a 10. And then so the person that's the empathic scanner, so to speak, and empaths are always open. The more psychic people are always open, so they respond to these waves. And then all of a sudden, you find your emotional stability influenced or affected, going up and down in these waves. So again, the representation too of the bridge over, let's say, a river, it's transcending the effect of that flow.
Okay.
So you can get into that other level of consciousness. And I want to get away from the terms that people use incorrectly, like higher frequency, higher vibration.
Yeah.
I just want to say a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
And that meaning that your higher consciousness is not easily distracted. So that's a good way to describe, what is a higher consciousness. You're just not influenced and distracted by the lower consciousness forms. So yeah, people, and these dreams, like the one that you're having or talking about now, are a good sign that kind of validates or enforces if someone is in that higher consciousness, because now this dream is mirroring your conscious state and giving you the symbols.
Yeah.
You're someone that spends time and focusing on self-awareness, so when you get this kind of a dream and you share that, and I'm listening to that, like, to me, that's a great sign. It's like, wow, you're really on the path, you're really in the shamanic flow to have a dream like that. And it's very accurate in the conditions around you and in the global scene.
Interesting. One thing also that the bridge represents, and especially like between the city and the volcano, because those are two things that do not really match together, a volcano in a city. So the bridge can represent, as well as you said, the higher consciousness, but also the connection between realities, between worlds, between the seen and the unseen, because the volcano, for me, I mean, the meaning is not like a real volcano, but it's more the unconscious, what is happening underneath, not that it's really a volcano around the city. So the bridge also can represent the connection between both worlds, between the world of the unseen, the energy, and then the 3D matter world we live in, right? So we were like transcending, the people were walking towards the volcano, were passing there. And I was also.
Well, that's also the real skill of the higher consciousness evolution, is being able to go back and forth on that bridge in between the worlds. I mean, how many times have you heard me use that expression, learning to live between the worlds, between the world of mass population perceptions and then the reality and volatility of the natural energies of the earth in their truths.
Yeah.
So and then in the dream, the people got a wake-up call. It's like, hey, guess what? This is intensity over here, and this is some real intense reactions naturally occurring. And then they're like, oh, this ruins my picnic, Time to run to the other side of the bridge.
Yeah. Also, in the dream, people were like really afraid of dying, you know. So I think it's the part of, yeah, fear of the death, something that is also now on society. Um, and I don't know, but in the dream I was calm, like if this needs to happen, that needs to happen, you know. It's like I cannot fight against the volcano, you know, it's just nature. This is what needs to come, you know.
Well, again, yeah, if that's nature, and what determines the need, if that needs to happen. So in this case, like a volcano, there's just so much pressure being pushed up,
Mm.
and so it needs to be released. Just
Yeah.
from the physics. The physics says this will happen. It doesn't need to happen per se, but it will happen at some point because of the
Mm.
physics of it. And in sometimes with people, I've seen it, they're going to go through this change, of consciousness, whether they want to or not. And there's going to be that pressure change. Now, some people say, oh, that's their destiny. That's what they came here to do. Well, I don't have any proof of that, but what I do see, the signs, just like you can see the signs where the earth is shaking,
Mm.
the mountain is rumbling. And it's like, well, this volcano may become active again.
Yeah.
Um, but with people, but then what can help the eruption or the shift and transition of power and consciousness is their resistance. So we have the resistance of the earth on top of the volcano, and finally it's like it's going to blow up, or the person could go, okay, maybe I need to make some life changes. I can feel something coming. Maybe I need to go have a reading. Maybe I need to go do shamanic clearing, shamanic massage. Maybe I need to look into this deeper, tell somebody these particular signs. I mean, the people that have come to us in readings, they what they come to us about are way out of their normal life operational procedures. And that's one of the ways to keep the personal volcano, from just erupting and destroying life as they know it.
Yeah, very true.
So in your case, it's a mirroring of where you're at in your conscious evolution, and it's a nice reflective state. But if someone came to us off the street for an appointment and they said this, I'd be asking them like, hey, are you having any special dreams? Are you thinking about things out of the norm? Are you having different desires, thinking about different pictures, wanting to make big life changes? And see how they answer that question.
Yeah.
That's the other interesting thing with dream interpretation. You really have to look at the dream and then also where they are in their life, and then look at the comparative differences. Because like I said, with this dream, with you, it means and shows one thing. With somebody else, imagine if a 60-year-old priest came in with this dream. I'm thinking, oh, this guy's about to get a big religious wake-up call.
Mm.
You know, um,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Is I think it depends on the person in the, yeah, stage they are at their life at the moment, and also the surroundings, like what is happening in their family, in their country, you know, around in society. So I think the external is also a factor that
yes,
plays a role.
their personal relationship, working life, everything.
Yeah. Mm.
And then also, if you start to see waves of people having similar dreams, you can really count that there's something that's in common with those dreams that's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, which is one of the nice things about doing this types of like appointments is when people come and you start to see the waves of things, whether it's dreams, whether it's visions, whether it's synchronicities, you can
Mm,
almost set your watch by what's going to happen in the future by the input from the clients and appointments.
mm, yeah. So this is the collective also taking signs of the flow, right? Of the
Yeah.
universe can be coming.
And this is also why I don't recommend books for people when they want to do dream interpretation, because
Mm,
people could say, "Oh, volcano means dot dot dot." Well, yeah, it could in this scenario. However, in
yeah.
this other scenario, it would not mean that. You know, um,
Yeah, I think it's important what it means for you. Like, if you dream about horses, for example, yeah, you can go to the general symbolism of a horse, yeah, and can be partially that, but also what is the relationship you have with horses, for example, how do you feel about them? And with that, everything, because it's very subjective, for every person, the symbolism can be also very different. Maybe one person had an accident with horses and is terrified every time he or she sees a horse, and for other person, is working with them and really feeling freedom when it's around horses. So that's why you cannot always generalize the symbolism of one common thing, one animal or one thing in nature. It's always depending to the subject, I think.
'cause that's a real good point because in some of the books that I read, people wrote that horses, sexuality, sensuality, freedom, compassion, but I'm thinking a couple years ago, I was kicked. I thought I had compound fracture from one leg, and then I had my hip broken by another horse. Or if you had somebody else as a kid had been cornered by a horse and terrorized, they're gonna go, what? Freedom? I was trapped. Sensuality, compassion? No, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you really have to look at where you're at, in that. And again, this goes back into there's no shortcuts in this
Yeah.
kind of work. People need to really decipher every point to get something an accurate interpretation.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more painful than a horse bite. It, yeah, one of the young ones bit my head last week, bit me right up here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he was playing. You know, so I'll just add that to my horse repertoire.
You have a lot of symbolism with horses
Yeah,
already in real life.
my totem animal for now.
Yeah. Okay, Hawk. So, yeah, so this was the dream of today that I wanted to share with you and with the audience. So, yeah, I think we did have a good research of the symbolism of that. And I have already a couple of friends sending me some dreams that we can go through them, yeah, in the next episodes. And maybe at some point we will see also common patterns. That will be really interesting.
It would. Um, you know, Also, if people want to set up appointments, we can't really do the in-person appointments like we used to, but maybe we could do Zoom appointments with people if they wanted to do that. And I'm really hearing more people have very deep dreams at this particular time in our history globally. I mean, with the advantage of, the internet, we're able to have appointments with people all over the world. So if anybody wants to do an appointment online for the interpretation, we can work with that. They'll contact you and we'll try and schedule a call. when we can help people with these things. Because, we also have to remind people, shamans are going to get their visions and their dreams and so forth. But some of the best messages can come from the everyday person, and so what the point I want to make with this is sometimes the input from the everyday person is just as important of a message that the shaman will get. And
Mm,
sometimes the everyday person is the messenger for that
yeah,
message that the shaman's going to get. And the
yeah,
story that goes along with that is that person's particular story is also part of that important message. So people, if you'd like to set up an appointment, and you never think that we're going to think your dream or anything you say is crazy, because every time we think we've heard it all, we're going to hear something new. Never,
yeah,
never think that what you're thinking, feeling, or your dream is not important or it's stupid or don't think that,
yeah,
because that could be your gateway to escape your social programming and get into the shamanic flow yourself and make a very, very valuable contribution to some really positive changes happening in the world today. So feel free to contact Elisa and set up an appointment and
yeah.
see how we
I will,
work
yeah.
together.
So here I will put the description of my page and how they can contact us, in all the platforms, so it's easy for them anytime to contact me. Yeah,
Okay,
and I will be very happy to do so.
awesome.
Okay, Hawk, so thank you very much for today. It was really good to talk to you and the interpretation. I'm very happy about that dream. Let's see what it comes next.
Yeah, it's a great sign. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what you come up with next.
Yeah, me too.
Alrighty.
Okay,
All right. Have a
then
great.
see you the next time.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.